I'll start with an introduction of myself. I am William B. Heberling, the Western Regional Chair for NAVOLSA. I've been the chair since last year around April, and it is a pleasure and honor to be here. This panel is on data privacy, one of the fastest growing fields of law. We have seen the introduction of new privacy laws in California, Virginia, Colorado, as well as internationally. And privacy attorneys, do things like work in-house and at big law firms. Ultimately, they have their hands full. So we're here to learn more about data privacy, what a privacy counselor does, and more about this fascinating field. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Juliet Sansel, who is Senior Privacy Counsel at Inuit Inc. In Los Angeles, California. Next, we have Colin Smith, who is a principal corporate sponsor at Microsoft. And lastly, we have Nyambura Kyrie. Please let me know if I pronounced that correctly. Who is Associate Privacy Counsel at VeriSafe. Also today, we'll be supported by our amazing chair in the Northeast, Leslie Velos. I would like to, kick us off with our first question today. And I'm hoping that you all can talk a little bit about, a little more biographical information as you answer this question. But I would like to know, how did you end up doing privacy law?
I guess I'll start. If it works. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I know it says California, which is where our headquarters is, but I'm actually on the East Coast in North Carolina. And so good evening to those of you on the East Coast. So I started my career in privacy in a kind of non-traditional fashion. I got an LLM in health law and really had a career path of wanting to go into healthcare work, primarily healthcare compliance, which I did do. After graduating, I worked for a couple of different traditional healthcare delivery systems in the Chicagoland area and in a couple of other places, serving as a compliance and privacy officer, and spent a lot of time doing privacy investigations work, as well as building effective compliance programs under kind of HHS framework. And then decided to go in-house with a medical device company, which was great. And I got an opportunity to really grow at scale as the company was growing. And so I supported them as an attorney as the company was growing internationally, doing a lot of work on gap analysis with US privacy laws, particularly around healthcare. So Hipaa, high-tech, GINA, and as well as consumer privacy rights. And at the time, Gdpr was just coming online. And so we did a lot of work building and standing up a GDPR compliant privacy program and looking at privacy programs in other geos or other territories where the company was looking to expand. And I quickly realized that of all of the body of work I did, which was kind of, spanned transactional work as well as compliance and ethics and privacy, my real passion was in data privacy. And so I started looking at opportunities where I would be able to really be a subject matter expert squarely in the field of data privacy. And that's kind of what brought me to Intuit, where I serve as privacy counsel for the company and get to work on a lot of really interesting topics and do product reviews and really build out a privacy by design program and help mature the program as well. And so in my mind, privacy is kind of a natural fit for me because I see it as a fundamental human right. And I think legislation is kind of catching up with a lot of big tech and increased transparency. And I think it's a way to advocate for consumers on the inside and with a right that many people think about, and they they hold it core to them, but they may not think about it in terms of sharing data with companies. And so I think it's a really wonderful like niche role for me, and it's a great opportunity to be an advocate for consumers, but also get exposure into really interesting areas of law as well.
Anybody jump in next? All right. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Colin Smith, Principal Corporate Counsel at Microsoft. So the question was, how did you end up doing privacy? So that it was probably a little bit less traditional than most. I've always been, I guess, technologically inclined. I've been self-professed nerd or geek, video gamer, all of it. So if it's something that has to do with a keyboard and screen or a controller, or it plugs in like that, or it's got Wi-Fi, or back in the day when I was younger, dial-up internet, it's been, kind of core to my identity a little bit since I was a little kid, when my dad first brought home our first home PC that was probably about as big as just about anything you can think of. So if that gives away my age a little bit here, but I went to law school when I was on active duty in the Army. Actually, I started out my career practicing mostly military law. Is a bit of a misnomer. We have in the Army, there's any manner of subject matter expertise that's needed, whether it's actual true military law like military justice and the very specific, the Uniform Code of Military Justice is the statute that has the disciplinary actions and such for the Army, as the criminal code. And then otherwise, though, most of it's, the typical contract law, contract and fiscal law, tax, all the things that hit any other corporation or company or a client base at a law firm. So I started there doing mostly what the Army tells you to do. So didn't get a chance to do anything that really touched technology when I was in the Army. It was estate planning, individual issues like landlord-tenant for soldiers and retirees. So mostly it was a lot of legal aid work. I got to do a little bit of technology work, mostly in transactions, as an administrative law attorney at Fort Hood, Texas. All that was a contract review for renewal on a refresh of devices. So, buying new laptops for the base and for the unit that I was in. If anybody has any familiarity with the government or the military, you know that we were not buying the top of the line devices that were available at market. We were buying, whatever is the cheapest thing that money can buy. And it's also specifically with maybe not only one, but maybe two cycles of Windows behind the rest of the world. So a little bit different now that I actually work at the place that makes Windows. So after that, though, I decided it was, I think I had decided it was time to maybe do something else before I arrived at the decision to resign my commission from the Army. And I lucked into a job at JP Chase in-house. And I truly do mean luck. I didn't have anybody really help me out. The mentors that I had in the Army were not very helpful for trying to figure out corporate America or private practice. No fault of theirs, it'd be in career military officers. So I had to figure it out. And when I found myself at JP Morgan, the job that I had applied for ended up being a lot more tech-centric than I thought. I was in an organization called the Office of Legal Obligations, and it was in the Office of General Counsel. And our charter, or our role was to, as the 3 or 4 attorneys that were brought onto this team, was to work directly with software engineers that were trying to build a platform that they say was supposed to be an AI platform to do regulatory change management. And so for folks that aren't necessarily, if you've heard that term before, that's great. But for those who haven't, regulatory change management is as laws and rules, statutes, regulations, whether it's the Code of Federal Regulations or otherwise, and in the Federal Register, things change. The JP Morgan, we would call it the bank, it was like a colloquial way that we call it, the bank is both a bank, a literal bank, and a corporation. And so it's both a company and a financial services institution. It's two very distinct areas in the regulatory space. Our job was to try to help to build this platform so that we could automate the process of reviewing laws and rules that would be changed or published for comment and otherwise for material changes to the things that would impact us as a bank or as a corporation. Sounds really easy until you maybe get the first window into software development and how hard it is to actually develop anything. To the simplest mobile game or app is a long and difficult process. Even more so when you're talking about trying to build AI into something. And then the added caveat of when you are kind of trying to build an airplane in flight with very limited resources. And so I think that this was at the time, we're talking about 2016, something where, the department that I was in at the time didn't quite grasp the gravity of, or the resource intensive nature of software development, especially when you're talking about AI and machine learning algorithms for stuff like this. So after doing that for about a year, I transferred internally to another role for the consumer bank, which is Chase, where I was able to kind of work my way into becoming the regulation P or privacy attorney for consumer banking for my particular department and group. So I would handle just about all sorts of different matters involving individual consumers' privacy. We had, we would advise even on the privacy related to cryptocurrency transactions. A lot of mainstream banks are not terribly keen on cryptocurrency, and so that was an interesting space to navigate. And then all other manner of anything involving as regulation P is a privacy regulation for consumer banking. I also started up a forum when I was there, like we called it a VPG or virtual practice group for data protection and privacy. The CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, was on its way. It wasn't quite in force yet. And so this was an opportunity that I saw that I felt like there might have been a blind spot with some of my colleagues in making sure that we were adequately prepared to take on the challenges of that particular statute, given especially that Chase Bank, is pretty much a nationwide bank in all 50 US states. And so how do we navigate something like that? And so this is something that got started. As some things are, people add more and more people to the team over time, and there's a lot of different opinions. Got things a little bit bogged down, but in the meantime, I was still searching for my next opportunity, and that's when I came at Microsoft. And I'm now about a month and a half into my second role within Microsoft as well. So I spent the first 3 years here working in our Office 365 group, and so I primarily worked with enterprise data protection and privacy. So the GDPR, for anybody who's interested in this, for sure, the GDPR is pretty much like the manuscript or the holy text of data protection and privacy right now. The CCPA is a great law too. Illinois has a pretty good biometric statute as well. However, if you are, like we all are, attorneys in the United States, the US government has not really taken a whole lot of steps towards trying to define what this space looks like for the United States. And so the GDPR is going to be your main watchword for now. We as a company, I can talk about this, we extend GDPR protections to every customer, regardless of their location. So if you're in the United States and you're consuming a product or service that's from Microsoft, you get GDPR protections, even if you're not European. So that's kind of how I ended up doing privacy law. I had to kind of almost build or construct my own practice to get to where I wanted to get to. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's been interesting. There's a lot of gray area, a lot of ambiguity. And so, if you like that, you'll love it. If you're like one of my best friends who's now at Morgan Stanley instead of JP Morgan, if you like the Securities and Exchange Act of 1940, which hasn't changed much since 1940, then perhaps this area of law is maybe not quite what you're looking for. So, but thanks. I'm looking forward to chatting with everybody today.
Hi, everybody. Colin and Juliet will be a tough act to follow, but I'm I'm at the beginning of my data privacy law journey, and just as an attorney generally, my journey began in the UK. That's why I qualified as an attorney, and the qualification process is a little different in that you have 2 years of what people call articling, pupillage, or training. And then within those 2 years, you identify a specific practice that you are going to specialize in. And I remember that was in 2017, and in 2018, the Gdpr came online, and there was so much hype around it. And I really wanted to join the technology and media practice group, but it was oversubscribed. And so I found myself in the project finance department, and finance is great, and I genuinely enjoyed it, but I couldn't stop. I felt like I needed to do privacy. And as things happen, life happened, and I moved over to the US, and I qualified in the US. And this was during the pandemic, looking for jobs during the pandemic, so that was fun. I remember looking at job postings and essentially for privacy law, and they were like, you have to have 3+ years of experience, and thinking, there's no way I can get a privacy law job with, first of all, project finance experience, which is not related, but also less than 3 years experience, especially in-house. So I lucked out, essentially. My foot into privacy law was through a global nonprofit. I applied for a job, and I got in, and half the role was just privacy, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was one of 3 lawyers, and I was a second lawyer doing privacy, and the lawyer that I was practicing under was very gracious with me, and pointed me to all the right directions. But I think as essentially what I'd do is I'd research and then go train my colleagues about privacy law almost the same day. So I remember trying to do SIP US certifications, SIP EU certifications, trying to get my hands on everything that I could so that I could be able to function as a privacy attorney in a global institution. And also to be able to sell the concept to my colleagues who had no legal background, but also didn't understand why they need to comply with the GDPR, right? So yeah, and I just remember doing a lot of privacy and thinking, I really enjoy this, and I don't feel the time pass. And I decided to do it full time. And so I sought out a job that essentially meant that I dedicate most of my time to privacy law and cybersecurity law. And so now I practice as associate privacy counsel at a data protection and cybersecurity consultancy firm that deals with small and medium-sized companies. And we essentially counsel them on all things privacy and cybersecurity, and trying to help them with their compliance gap issues. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. That was really excellent. And so I just want to acknowledge that people are posting questions in the chat, and we will absolutely answer those. I believe you were sent some questions in advance, so we're going to try to just make sure we cover those first, and then circle back. And so just to make, again, data privacy, is a very large field, very quickly developing. And so, I think these next couple of questions are designed to really help people who are very unfamiliar get oriented. So the next question is, what exactly is finance tech? And before we started with Juliet, we can go back there, or you all can, whatever feels more comfortable for you.
I'm happy to start. And it's probably a good one for me because Intuit is primarily in the space of consumer and business financial services and products. So we make QuickBooks, which obviously has a large accounting component for small businesses and the self-employed. We also have a payroll products function within that. We have Mint. We now have Credit Karma, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with in terms of consumer finances. We also offer professional accounting and tax filing services, as well as consumer tax and TurboTax, and with our what's called our Pro Connect group. So that's primarily geared towards professional accountants to serve their customers. And then most recently, we acquired Mailchimp, which is actually a service that allows small businesses to really reach their customers and provide marketing and other opportunities and build websites and things of that nature. Intuit's mission is really around, powering prosperity. And a part of that is fintech. And so it's really, fintech in my mind is really, being able to leverage data to provide personalized analysis and outputs using like large AI and model development. So artificial intelligence and machine learning in order to get better informed decisions on making financial services or products available to individuals. And we do that in a number of ways, obviously through, more traditionally through personal loans or business loans, but also even credit cards or offering lines of credit, purchasing a car, buying a house. All of that has impact in the fintech space. And I also would say that, there are privacy laws that are specific to industry. I think that's kind of how the US has built its privacy framework. So of course, Hipaa and high tech to the healthcare delivery services space. And then we have what's called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or GLBA, which is specific to the consumer financing space. And it's really kind of the standard bearer for financial services or fintech platforms to be able to deliver privacy-focused experiences to their customers. So yeah, I think, fintech generally is like, leveraging all the different data points that businesses collect about an individual, including how they interact with their own website or products and services in order to make determinations around that individual's propensity to either pay back a loan or their eligibility for a loan, their ability to ensure that their small business succeeds and things of that nature. So.
I don't know. I have nothing to add. So
Yeah, that was pretty comprehensive.
I'm not a finance attorney, so it was a great answer. So
I would just say it's where technology and finance meet to be able to give individuals financial services. Like if you think about your online mobile app, your ability to cash a check or like take pictures of your check and then be able to see that money deposited in your bank account. That's how I understand it. And that's how to explain it to a lay person. It's just a combination of finance and tech, so people can be able to access financial services.
Amazing. No, thank you. That was really comprehensive. And I got really excited when you said something as simple as Mailchimp, because Nabolsa uses that to communicate with our people. So just a shout out to Inuit.
Yeah.
But all right. And also you provided us with an excellent segue to our next question, which is, how does privacy and Hipaa overlap?
Maybe I'm happy to start, and also because I started my career in healthcare, so maybe it's a good one. But yeah, I mean, so the US again has really built privacy laws as a result of a need. It hasn't been, it's been a really it's been a really reactive process, and of course in the US, given our the way our healthcare delivery system works, it was realized early on that there needed to be a law to protect, patient health information or protected health information under HIPAA. So that law was passed in 1996, and it was one of the first industry-specific federal privacy laws here in the US. And it's really a subset of, it's really meant to kind of qualify the privacy and security standards, as well as breach notification standards when an individual or covered entity is collecting PHI. And so it's, specific to operating in like the traditional healthcare delivery space, but also now more so in healthcare technology spaces. So, the Fitbit that many people wear, or being able to access kind of, like on-demand telehealth and services of that nature. Those are all qualified under HIPAA. And in my mind, again, it's just a subset of data protection or data privacy that a company may provide to an individual, because there's certain sets of data that are collected in a certain context. So for instance, a company may have a healthcare services arm, and that data may be covered under HIPAA, but the company itself may also collect, consumer financial data, or just consumer data generally for residents of California, which is also covered under CCPA. And, our jobs is really to think holistically around how do we solve for all of that data coming in and being used for various purposes in a way that obviously protects it and is very transparent to the individual, but also allows the business to grow at scale and continue to offer deliverable and durable services.
I can add just a little bit from from the business transactional side of things, which anytime you have a entity that is subject to the requirements of HIPAA, there's a great description of what HIPAA is and how it works. They have, what is called the PHI, or protected health information. However, those entities, if we use the Mayo Clinic, for example, or Johns Hopkins Hospital, or any other hospital that hospital or healthcare organization you can think of, insurance companies and the like, there's a good chance that their productivity suite and software is Microsoft Office, as one example. And there's a requirement that anybody that's going to be protecting or safeguarding the PHI has to have a business associate agreement with whoever is going to be providing the other technology. And so the nexus between the connection of privacy and HIPAA for the transactional space and I guess the productivity, the software space, is that they would have to have not only an agreement in place, we call volume licensing, and it's where we'll continue. I'll just keep using the Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic decides, hey, we have 1,000 employees. We need to purchase 1,000 seats to subscribe to Microsoft Office in order to get our work done, in order to do our jobs. In addition to that, there would also have to be a BAA that has all of the different specific call outs around privacy for HIPAA and protected health information, so that we, as the company who's going to be the data processor, which is a GDPR term for anybody taking notes, write down data processor and data controller. As the Microsoft as the processor also has certain obligations to meet under that BAA specific to that customer that we don't necessarily have for other customers that aren't subject to HIPAA, for example. So that's all that I can offer. So, but hope that that's helpful.
Do you have any thoughts? Were you about to unmute? Perfect.
I have nothing else to add. Those have been quite comprehensive answers.
Excellent, thank you. So it's clear that we have at least kind of two fields of privacy something, but I guess I'm wondering if there are specific categories within privacy law. So, HIPAA, financial tech, but I'm also thinking about things like ransomware, privacy counseling, etc.
Yeah, I can take that one. My understanding is that, especially in the United States, where there's not just one federal law yet, the privacy is sort of divided into certain categories like finance, healthcare, education, data that's collected from children under COPPA, children's privacy data, telecommunications and marketing. So it's sort of divided according to the industries. And also because there isn't one federal law, you have, like Colin stated earlier, you have the different state laws that are either coming online, have come online, just about to come online. So in terms of within the United States, there's a myriad of categories depending on whether you want to you want to divide them into jurisdictions, or you want to divide them into industries. And I think there's also internationally, you have the Chinese law, you have the Canadian law. So it depends on what sort of categories you're talking about, but there are a number, and it's quite a lot to wrap your head around.
I would only add that an additional kind of complexity to overlay is that in-house legal departments, or even big firm kind of practice groups, would also probably further segment. So the privacy team at Intuit is actually relatively small given the size of our company. We have, when fully staffed, we have a team of about 7 dedicated privacy attorneys. And so therefore we serve in a very broad capacity. We do product counseling work. We do draft policies and procedures, but larger organizations may have a dedicated privacy compliance team or privacy product team. And so it also kind of depends on the structure of the legal department that you join, whether or not there's a subset of privacy that you're doing, or whether you're just a privacy generalist.
Yeah, I'll echo that. We have legal, an entire privacy organization, and then we also have compliance that does a lot of the other the things that kind of feed into both of these areas specifically. But just because I have what we would call a privacy champ, who's like my right-hand person for privacy, doesn't mean that there's not still an expectation that I also know all the same stuff too. I'm looking, I have the questions printed out. There's so tech transactions, tech transactions, or tech trans, is a lot of the shorthand that everybody's going to use when you are talking to folks in law firms, is probably where a law firm is going to put everything in that bucket, is in their technology transactions practice group. And then within there, it's a whole host of all sorts of things. When I've hired outside counsel to assist on larger deals, they can range from anything from actual privacy expertise in different specific we would call geos, or locations, jurisdictions. So the point of China having a different law, some other countries like Japan, for example, we had to work on several deals with companies in Japan. Japan and Korea don't really, their privacy law kind of says that an employer can just look at everything. So there's different ways to where we have to try to figure out where all of those different things kind of fit into play all the time, to include the privacy angle and product counsel. And so it can be a little bit different in-house, but at a law firm, if you hear anybody saying tech transactions, that's the way that they talk about it. That's going to include probably not Hipaa. I think Hipaa is going to fall within life sciences or healthcare practice groups, but some of the fintech, definitely anything, counseling on ransomware, privacy counseling, tech transactions, anything else is going to be within that tech transactions group. So if you're students listening and this is what you want to do, as you're interviewing and as you're meeting other people and building your network, check for the people on the law firms as you're going through that list of partners and whoever else on that firm, all those smiling faces. Look for the people who are in the tech transactions group.
Thank you. That's so helpful. All right. What I'm thinking as a kind of facilitator of this discussion is that I think I want to ask for you all question number 5. I'll tell everyone else that in a second. And then address some of the questions from the audience, just because unfortunately, like I said, we did get started a little late, but I want to make sure we kind of engage the people in the room too.
I'm excited about the questions in the chat. There's some good questions in there. So I'll answer 5 really quick because I want to get to answering people's questions.
Perfect. So question 5, what does your practice look like? Really just want to demystify that experience for people. And so are you meeting with clients? Are you making privacy policies? Are you constructing agreements? What does that look like? Yeah. All
right, I'll start. Like I said, I'll be quick. All right, so I'm gonna go point by point. So what my practice looks like, I don't know, because every day that I log in or I go to work, I have no idea. I have a good idea based on my calendar that I have some Teams meetings, but other than that, I have absolutely no idea, as evidenced by the week that I've had this week. So am I meeting with clients? Yes. In-house departments also have clients. The best way to think about it is we're the legal department. Somebody's got to give the business legal advice. So the business is our client. Microsoft writ large, I suppose, is my client. And so we meet all the time. Sometimes we don't meet since we're talking about technology, and we use stuff like Teams or other companies. If they don't, they use Zoom or Slack or anything, any one of the different collaborative tools or chat tools out there. Sometimes we don't meet because we just chat. So that's another way that we're able to get, they can get a quick question, quick advice, and then, we can stay focused on all the different tasks that I have at hand. And then privacy policies and agreements. Agreements, yes. Policies, no. So any of the transactions that I work on with partners, customers, any kind of counterparty to some kind of an agreement, third party, there's definitely going to be some language in there about data protection, privacy. We have boilerplate language like most large in-house companies would, or even law firms, specific to all of our different GDPR commitments and obligations. Even though you have really good boilerplate language that's been agreed upon by 98% of your customer and partner base, there's always inevitably that one company that wants to try to negotiate, the Oxford comma, or they want to, whatever it is. So there will be some negotiation on agreements and adding a little, extra, so that what we do is we can always add extra to our privacy commitments to whoever we're doing a deal with, but we're not going to go any lower than the GDPR bar, our own internal policy bar, and that type of stuff. So we're also not going to add anything extra that's going to require any changes to the actual, SKU or the software, the package, the device. We sell Office for the United States by and large, and then we sell it for the European Union as a different SKU by and large. We're not going to make a wildly nuanced change to how Microsoft Office runs, because Luxembourg needs something different. Sorry, Luxembourg, but as a smaller country, they're usually, those types of things are small, where it's very, very specific to their only specific need. And we just say, sorry, like the amount of resources and everything we spend to change the software is not, worth just that one little thing. And it's not necessarily something that's necessary. So, you can still use the regular one. It's compliant. We tell them it's totally compliant with everything that you're looking for. It's just, the extra, sorry, we're not going to do the extra. So yeah, we have an entire department, privacy and regulatory affairs, that does the policy. So, which is great, because I'm not a fan of trying to write policy.
If I could summarize what I do every day is just contracts, negotiating them, drafting them, reviewing them, all the master services agreements and the DPAs, the data privacy addendums or agreements, whatever you call them, together with the SECs. That's me all day, every day, drafting, negotiating, and essentially trying to make sure that our clients are, their vendors especially, are compliant with the GDPR. And on top of that, we have a lot of clients doing their privacy notices, especially when they're GDPR related, when they land on the page, for there to be a privacy notice that is actually compliant, because that's the first thing that the regulators see. So I'm always a first draft, second draft, third draft of a privacy notice. And then there's the SOPs, the standards of procedure. Draft a lot of internal policies on data breaches, how companies handle data breaches, on data subject rights, and several other very GDPR focused SOPs, because the GDPR is just so extraterritorial. It's hard to avoid it, and it sort of set the pace for every other state or country trying to create privacy laws. So in terms of meeting clients, I do meet them, but to be honest, like, I just do a lot of drafting, and I think it's a function of where I'm at in my career, and I love it because I don't know what I'm doing and I need to learn. So handing it over to Juliet.
I'm sure you do know what you're doing, but I think my role is like truly a generalist. So I do everything from developing our enterprise privacy awareness training that all workers have to take, to doing product counseling work and advising on like what notice language we're going to put in, a particular onboarding flow with like a third party, or when we are collecting certain data within our product. I also work on our privacy by design program, so doing privacy impact assessments and data protection impact assessments under GDPR. I do a lot of meetings with like our data scientists and our engineering and our products managers, who are really building out those experiences and talking to third-party partners about, how can we best deliver for something for our shared customers. I do a lot of policy drafting work as well. And then I also support our kind of external framework. So when laws are coming online, so Utah's the most recent, when, like when that bill is in draft, we go through our trade associations to provide like Intuit's perspective on that law, whether or not we believe it's burdensome or, like this should be an opt-out versus an opt-in, like those kinds of things. And so we have a corporate affairs team that, is constantly looking at the legislative landscape to see what's on the books for, state legislators. And then I partner with our corporate affairs team to provide the Intuit perspective on those. And so yeah, my day, similar to Colin's, runs the gambit and can be very different depending on how things go.
Thank you all so much. These questions in the chat are fire. I don't know how many we're gonna get through, but I'll try. So we have a question. That's what can you recommend to us to explore and investigate? And then there are a lot of examples, terminology, publications, industry practice, etc. If we're looking to have a toe up on a career in privacy law.
I think one thing I didn't say when I was doing my introduction that I know the others mentioned was that, me getting into privacy in this role in particular was also luck. And so I think it's really like being your own advocate on a basic level, like regardless of what industry or what particular sector you decide to go into, never think that you're not qualified enough or that you're not good enough for a particular position. I think that's really, just throw it at the wall and see what sticks. And then just, also make sure you, self-educate to the extent that you can. So reading up on the laws, using professional resources where you can. The International Association of Privacy Professionals, or IAPP, is a great one to get connected to others who practice in this space. It also has a ton of certifications. And those, I think, are what employers typically look for in a candidate. And then my only other piece, which I just put in the chat, is that there are also industry-specific certifications that you could pursue. The one that I have for healthcare is the Certified Healthcare Privacy Compliance, or the CHPC. But long story short, there's a lot of ways to make yourself a very attractive candidate, even if you don't have a ton of experience. And given how fast this area of practice is exploding, we spend a lot of time talking about looking to create a pipeline and to look at more junior attorneys and be able to mentor and support them internally so that we build in-house strength for our privacy practice. So
build your networks. That's going to be my addition to everything that Julia said. Yes, emphatic yes. Also build your network. That last part about a pipeline is a real thing. I think more and more companies, and I know that we are specifically not soon, but we're going through the process of building out what it looks like to lean in a lot more on early in career talent, and that includes recent graduate talent as well. And so in an area like this, again, to kind of call back to my first comment about the Securities and Exchange Act of 1940, there's a long history of experts on things like banking law that kind of like hand down the knowledge and the treatises and everything else from generation to generation. We're kind of working on and writing that stuff right now. If there was like going to be a treatise on data protection, privacy, and all this stuff, like, we're working on that. And so, talking about, people say like, man, if only I would have been able to buy Google stock right when they went public, or if I was only able to, this is the time to get into the tech industry. The best time to get into the tech industry was yesterday. So, build the network too. The things that I've learned, a lot of the things that I've learned in this space have either come from, thankfully my manager in working here, but then just from other people that I know, people that we talk to, We have group texts amongst folks that we have met at other events and otherwise that are kind of like our own little personal think tank of idea sharing and otherwise, obviously keeping company confidential information aside from that and attorney-client privilege information aside from that. But we you know, it's a space where, you know, no people aren't out here doing this alone. I personally, you know, again, everything I say, by the way, is world according to Colin. Any lawyer that you meet who purports to have like done data protection prior and they're like they're all by themselves and like probably I don't know if I would trust that person. This is not a space or a practice area where you can just like do all this by yourself. It requires having a growth mindset, requires networking, requires flexibility. This is not the place for anybody who thinks that they've already arrived. So lean in on that network, raise your hand when you need help. You know, ask questions. Those were my tips. And then building your network could bear fruits anyway, whether it's, you know, in your job search, other career counseling, just developing new friendships. You know, a lot of really good things can come out of it that aren't necessarily just a job offer or just an interview. So
Yeah, I second everything my fellow panelists have said. And for me, the only thing I can emphasize, what worked for me as somebody who's just starting out in the industry is certifications. It's such a good signal to potential employers that you're interested in the field, and a little experience doesn't harm. You know, it goes a long way. If you can, any sort of internship, whether it's, you know, in a nonprofit, there are a lot of fellowships out there for privacy law and privacy policy. If you're interested and if you have the time and the resources, I'd also look into that. And what I do at a personal level is also just keep up with the news. There's always something going on in the data privacy world, and the IAPP has been such a great resource. Just subscribing to all those articles and I read them during my free time, and it's so entertaining because it's all the companies that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, like Google and Facebook, you know. So it's not dull. It's not a dull space. So yes.
That brought us right up to, it's 4 p.m. on the West Coast. I'm not gonna cycle through all the time zones. But so I think I just have to say thank you all for being here, for sharing your wisdom. I hope you all do. Please, like, I know Colin put his LinkedIn in the chat. I hope you do reach out to people. I'm kind of worried this room is about to be used for something else. But I also did, just before we end, I want to spotlight Patience, who's been putting in the notes, the good nuggets. So thank you for your help with that too, Patience. And that's our panel. Yeah, have a good afternoon, everyone.
Please don't
Thank
be a
you.
stranger. If you have other questions or we didn't get to them, hit me up. I'm happy to answer them. Happy to chat.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you.